Joshua Smith here, and welcome to the GSD Mode Podcast. Now get shit done and smash that subscribe button now. What is up, my peeps? Joshua Smith here with another GSD Mode Podcast interview. Every single week, I interview top business owners, top entrepreneurs, top real estate professionals, straight top badass that they're dominating their space. And today, guys, got another special, amazing rock star guest here with us. Our guest today, just to give you guys a little quick background of who he is, what he does. So he is the president and founder of the Human Communications Institute. So he works with business owners and executives looking to transform their corporate culture. He's the author of Average Sucks, which I absolutely love the title. It's what GSD Mode's all about, man. Getting shit done and not accepting mediocrity. And just, somebody that just understands how to go out there and operate as the peak version of yourself in all aspects, business, mentally, just go out there and get shit done and go out there and live this life and create this life to the fullest extent possible. So really stoked and honored to have Michael Bernoff on the show, my friend.
Joshua, this is, I'm thrilled to be here. And I got to tell you, I love the way you put it. And if anyone got to hear what we just talked about a couple seconds ago, wow. So this is going to be an incredible show, and thrilled to be here and serve and help out with your audience.
Yeah, man. I mean, we just kind of had the pre-podcast before the podcast, and so some of those off air conversations are so insanely powerful. I probably should have a way for people to go check that content out too, man. Because it was an awesome conversation, dude. Before we get into all the things that you're doing today, and I know there's a lot of ground we want to cover, but I'm always intrigued in our guest journeys that led them here in the first place. Run the clocks, man. How did this all begin? How did you get to where you're at? Like, how did this journey begin for you?
Well, I've been doing this my whole life. I always tell everybody, I mean, even in high school, I was helping people, didn't even realize that I was always that guy that girls would ask for advice. This is funny. They'd ask for advice about their boyfriends. They probably liked me, but I didn't have the confidence to realize it. I was stupid back then, but they'd call me. I was always that guy that asking for advice for people. So I don't have this crazy story, Josh. I don't have this my parents were homeless and left me in the street, or I grew up with one leg and I grew it back, or my dad was Steve Forbes. I don't have either side. I'm a middle-class kid from New Jersey that grew up with big dreams, big desires, with parents great people that didn't have the ability to show me how to do it. They said, work hard, be a good person. I got a business for myself after watching my dad go back and forth to a job he liked, and he liked enough to get by to take care of us, right? But didn't love what he did. So I applied that to business when I got older and failed miserably. And I came across personal development. It's not an exciting story, but I came across personal development in the middle of college while I was working on a business I was failing in. And I go, holy shit, where's this been my entire life? They do not teach this in class or school or anywhere. And I got obsessed with the idea of how do you get yourself to get where it is you want to go? Because my whole life I felt that there was this magnetic pull that held me to being what I would call average. And there's this life I wanted, and there's this life I had. And then when I finally figured out how to get what I want, I've made it a lifetime journey to teach other people how to break and destroy that magnetic pull that gives them the same comp plan, gives them the same commission check, gives them the same marriage, they have sex the same amount of times every year, how to actually get the life they want instead of the one they're playing. And I had to break out of that shit myself. So that's how I got here. Middle-class kid from New Jersey with pretty average dude that outside of my height, and broke through it to get a great life.
Yeah, it's so awesome, man. It's crazy how a lot of times just solving our own problems ends up leading to, where we're at and what we do. So you talked about self-development, dude, and how that was kind of that defining thing that, allowed you, not just gave you the tools, but the mental component and so forth to go out there and do this. What was that? Was it a moment, dude, within self-development where it just whatever that message was just clicked, just hit, and you're like, all right, I know I'm on that path?
Yeah, there were two big days. There's probably a million of them. These are two that hit me right now. So I don't have any pre-planned stories of what I tell. I'm very ADD, like most entrepreneurs. I would say, if you don't have ADD, you should go get it, because the shit makes you rich, right? But if you use it right. And two defining days. One is I didn't do well in college my first couple of years. I was good at partying and bad at going to school, right? So I went back to Mesa Community College my third year because ASU was great to party, bad for a guy that liked to party. So I took a business class, and it's interesting because ASU wouldn't give me business classes, but the community college would. Hint, really weird, right? And the teacher gave a list of books to get. And I'm young, I'm single, I'm a guy, I lack confidence, and there's a book on the list, How to Win Friends and Influence People. And literally had no idea what it was, but it sounded like a good thing. I can't even tell you if I read the book, but it was that day that I realized, wait a second, holy moly, you can get better at things and you can get different things in life. I had no idea. Like, I never understood. I thought books were for class and reports. I didn't realize that you could spend $10 on a book and become better at things. Because the other thing is, I used to look up to sports figures, and I'd look up at them and go, God, look how good they are. And I had no idea. The only reason they're good is they do things I don't do. And instead of looking up to them, I should have looked up to my ass, but I looked up to them, right? And I should have looked up to me and go, how great could Michael be? Instead, I'm like Jordan, Gretzky, Tyson, because that's our age, right? We're looking up to those guys. And that was 2 big days. One day when I realized that, wait a second, in order to be more, you've got to become more, and you've got the ability to work on yourself. So I was lucky enough to have a guy named Jim Rohn, took me under his wing at a young age. There's a picture of Jim and I right up top, if you could see it. Yeah. I have my dad, which I love my dad, an incredible father, who is like my dad, physically biological dad. That is my business dad, who took me under his wing and taught me everything at about 19 to 20 years old, both in person and then auditorily listening to the stuff over and over again. So I'm a good student. I decided to listen, learn, and become more.
Yep. I love it, man. Yeah. One of my favorite quotes of his is, success in doing process is becoming process. And you were a student of that. Yep. Love it, dude. So I'm really interested, man. And you talked about how you talked about the story in high school with, girls would come to you about their boyfriends, but you lack confidence. And, I mean, now today, anybody that would meet you or see you on stage and doing what you're doing would never think that you're a dude that ever lacked confidence. Right. So, and a lot of people suffer with this, man. I mean, what has been for anybody that's maybe struggling with, how do I increase my internal self-confidence? Like what was the key for you to, going from somebody that wasn't confident to now being able to have the confidence?
There's different levels of confidence, because I'm going to tell you, this is the one thing. There's no ultimately confident people. There's crazy people, but there's no one that's ultimately confident in all areas of life. There's people that are insane that'll go jump into things they shouldn't jump into, right? But I had to get better at things. Like we all have a story. We don't need to dig it up, but I remember the day, I talk about it in my book, but I remember walking up to a sand pile when I was a kid and saying, hey, you guys want to play with me? And kid said, no problem. And another kid a minute later bashed me in the head with this like General Lee car from Dukes of Hazzard. I'm crying. And like, I never realized that it was that day that I realized kind of avoid new situations. And I did that for years. And it wasn't until I got older that I realized that confidence comes from doing things you don't normally do, even in areas outside of the thing that you need to do. So I always tell everyone, if you lack confidence in business, don't try to get better at business. Go do other things you're not good at. Because like, if you're going to teach a kid to be good at math, talk about any other subject than math and they'll listen to you. So whether it's doing a Spartan race, whether it's pushing yourself out of something you normally do, anytime you can do something different than what you would normally do, your brain goes, we're good at new things. We're good at new things. We're good at new things. Because all confidence is doing what you've never done before. I can get deep on this from a psychology standpoint. It's a blank space. So if I asked you, how good are you Josh, at hula hooping?
Terrible.
If anyone's watching live, you'd see his face. He's like, don't ask me to do it, right? So at one of my events, I will take somebody that cannot hula hoop, i.e. Kevin, our friend, right? And I'll literally give him a hula hoop and I go do it. And every story in his head of why he can't do it, he won't hula hoop, right? And then what will happen is I'll get him to say, listen, I want you to imagine your whole life you've been a hula hooper. Your entire life. You had a crazy Uncle Jim. He taught you, just play the game. That he showed you how to hula hoop. You've been doing it your whole life. It's old hat. It's some silly thing you knew how to do. Just what would your life be like if you did that? Instantly, they'll give that a shot and they'll be dramatically better. And in about 2-3 minutes, they'll be 100 times better than they were. And then their brain, you could leave them with that, or you could say to them, listen, the fact that you just got better at that in 3 minutes, how many other things have you lied about in your life? So lack of confidence is a form of lying to ourselves, saying we don't know how to do things. And it's a ego-based thing, basically saying, I should be good at this already, versus, of course I'm not good at this. I'm confidently not good at this because I've actually never done it before. And if I want to be good at YouTube videos, I want to be good at selling nutraceuticals, I want to be good at door knocking, I want to be good at whatever, it's actually something I'll have to do. And the reason I'm not good at it, point blank, is I've never actually done it before. So, I mean, I didn't understand dating because I didn't date. That's why I was no good at dating. It's an interesting concept. It's like we have this belief we're supposed to be good at things, and we have such a large ego that it gets in our way.
Yep. Yeah, I love it, man. So it sounds like, if I were to sum that up, it's like, all right, detaching from the stories. So removing limiting beliefs.
Yep.
And then, we hear this term all the time, and especially if you have kids and young kids in school, right? I mean, most schools operate by this, but a growth mindset versus a fixed mindset. Right? Like, hey, man, I might suck now, but if I put in the work, I can get good at this thing.
Yeah, it's a big concept, but where our lack of confidence comes from, like, so let's just say somebody wants to make $1 million versus making 6 figures. You finally got the 6 figures. This is where your life changes. And this is everything that I teach these days, is we all get to a point in our lives where we're doing well, better than we used to do, and we're having trouble getting what we want. I would say that is 99% of the people listening to this right now. You are doing okay, better than you used to do, but you're not where you want to go. And this is a little something I would call your average. Is everyone has an average of what they do very well, called their current life. And then they have the dream life, the life they want, and they cannot find a way to make that a reality. And there is very, very simple psychology. I can get deeper into this if you want, of why human beings get stuck making what they make. I only sell 10 houses a year, I only sell 6 a year, I only do 5 a year, I do 35 mortgages a year. God, why can I not do 50? Why do I make about the same? And there's very, very simple psychology of why we do this. And understanding any of it can change anybody in a matter of 5 minutes.
Yeah. Let's go there, man. Because it's, what I'm always intrigued with, I mean, for myself and for others too, but it is, why aren't we doing the things that we know what to do? We know how to do it. We know why it's important to us. We know what it leads to. Yeah, right. Like, we know that, okay, these things will lead to the life that we say we want, that we truly desire. We know what to do, how to do it. Well, why aren't we still doing it? Right? Like, I mean, it's, I think we've all been guilty of that at some aspect in our life, or maybe currently. Yeah, man, I'd love for you to
okay. Well, I'm going to use you as an example here, because this will be fun, because I'm an interactive guy. So here's the deal. You can't get what you want. I'm gonna say it point blank to every one of you. This is the most unmotivating thing to ever say to anybody. You personally, the way you do your life, all of you cannot get what you want at all doing what you're currently doing. It will not happen. We need to accept that fact. I'll explain why in about 2 seconds. That is not to unmotivate. I'm not saying it can't happen. I'm just saying you doing your life the way you do it, it is impossible to get what it is you want. That's like driving 60 miles an hour and pretending you're driving 90. If you're driving 60, you can't drive 90, you're driving 60. So let's play a little game here real quick. Josh, this is an interesting concept. And so you became an entrepreneur, right? How long ago?
16 years ago.
Okay, 16 years ago. Did you have a job prior?
Yep.
Where were you working?
Health clubs.
Okay, doing health clubs? Okay, good. You feel like you're in great shape, health clubs, stuff like that. So I bet there was a day where you said this to yourself: never again. I'm done. I'm going to work for myself. I'm going to do my own thing. I don't want to work for anybody else. I'm pissed off. I'm done. And you actually meant it. Did you have a day like that?
Yep, 100%.
Okay, so what happens is, I'm going to draw this out. I believe it's probably best I draw it on a piece of paper. But we all have a day where we say to ourselves, never again. And it's like you put a wall behind you where you say never again. You draw the line. I'll never be treated this way. I'll never be beaten again. I'll never let my kid talk back. I'll never drink alcohol again. I will never eat gluten again. And you freaking mean it. And then at that same moment, your brain, you are so intense. This is how the brain works. So brain 101, I'm going to backtrack real quick. This is your brain. It's inside your head. Okay. Your brain is the organism, okay? Like the physical organism, no different than my Mac computer. The physical hardware is the brain. The operating system is your mind. They are not the same thing. Do not confuse them. Your brains has the mind running it, and your mind has a very simple function: keeping you alive, keeping you safe. Outside of that, it does 2 other things. It seeks all day to look for advantages. How do you make your life better? So if you ever wondered, like, why am I addicted to the news, Netflix, negativity, anything, your brain is like, what do I enjoy? What do I like? So when you're like, I love cheesecake, your brain goes, oh my God, let's remind him to eat cheesecake. So your brain is always looking for advantages all day long. It's looking for things that make you feel good, films you shouldn't watch, shows you shouldn't be, websites you shouldn't freaking be on. You know what I'm talking about, folks. But you said you like them, and the drugs inside your brain, this will give you your dopamine, norepinephrine, serotonin, your nutraceutical background. I know you understand this. To understand, your brain's always looking for advantages. The only thing that overrides that is your avoid program, which is the strongest program we have. Anything that is mildly uncomfortable and upsets your advantage program, even like a paper cut or slightly, your brain will stop you from doing. So here's what happened. 16 years ago, Josh said to himself, never again. And then your brain goes, dude, I get it, man. You're serious. What do you want? And then in front of you, it draws a wall called want. So I'm going to put it here on paper. You got want and don't want. There's really bad handwriting, but you got want and don't want. And if any of you are listening to us right now, dealing with the crazy last year we had, I don't even use the C word or the P word from last year, because I don't want to add to the nervousness of it. I'm not the media. Okay. I don't want to add to the problem. So I call it unique year. Before that, remember going to dinner, Josh, when you'd go to dinner with people? I know we do that in Phoenix, and most conversations outside of our friends were what I don't want and what I do want. I want this. I want my kids to act this way. I want my business to be this way. And I don't want that. I'm sick of this. And it's even politics. I don't want this. I do want this. I don't want this. I do want this. And it's like, we're like bobbing our heads into the wall, into the other wall, into the wall, into the other wall. And we live our lives this way. So here's what happens. Your unconscious mind wants you to be comfortable. So you know what I said to that EXP group that Kevin had at the building a couple of weeks ago? I said, do you guys know what your biggest problem is? I told them. I said, you're average. And then I waited for them to look at me and get pissed off. And then I realized they're not average. They have an average. So are we clear on this? The two walls going on?
Yep.
Then what happens is we build a little something called an identity. If you have your right hand, it's your identity wall. And what your identity is we all have an identity. How do we identify? My name is Josh. I want to make $100 million, $200 million a year, and I don't want to struggle anymore. And we've got an identity. And we identify when we walk up to the bouncer of the club, what's your identity? And we show them who we are, what we want, what we don't want, who we are. And each day, our job is to live our identity of what we do, not what it is we want. Now, this is where it all gets crazy, because we have this thing called your average. The last thing that locks in our lives, and when I turn this on its head and I teach this as a recruiting model, it changes everything. The last thing is the people in your life. So here's the problem. Every one of us recruits people to keep us stuck, to motivate us enough, to piss us off, to make us happy, to encourage us, to remind us to be who we are and pretend we're going to get what we want. And we spend our lives running our head into a wall, pretending one day we're going to get what we want, instead of actually going over the wall, because everything you want is outside of the box you live. Here's where the problem comes in. Tell me, when 16 years ago, what was your first business, Josh, you got into?
Actually what I'm in now. So real estate.
Remember when you wanted to make six figures and you were super excited about it?
Yep.
And you finally got there and it wasn't as exciting as you thought it was?
Yep.
Okay. And then you got to look in the mirror and go, wait a second. My plan, my idea of what I thought was important, $10,000 a month, it's not what I thought it was. And maybe I worked really hard to get here, and this is really great. But I actually have to admit that there's another gear inside of me, and all that hard work and all that effort that I put in, maybe I built the wrong box for myself. So this is what agents do. This is what human beings do. They finally get what they want. And then when they realize that, they have to look in the mirror and they have to say, you know what, I'm doing well, but this is really not what I'm capable of. And we actually have to dismiss our current way of thinking and actually admit at some level we were wrong and we were misguided. It's crazy what I'm telling you. It's harsh on ourselves, but you need to go, you know what? I thought I'd be happy getting 10 houses a month. That's very good. That was good for who I used to be, but that's not good enough for who I'm capable of being. And that's a very hard pill for people to swallow. So I'm going to leave it at that. And maybe you can ask a question or two, but that is what people are dealing with. The life you currently have is the one you actually pre-planned and designed. And in order to change it, you need to admit that you're not where you want to be, which is the hardest pill for human beings to swallow.
So, I mean, whether we want to call it like a hacking the process or, is it an issue of, I mean, because people spend more time today designing their grocery list than they do their life plan.
Yep. Agreed.
So is it a lack of clarity on what they truly want, why they want it, and why it's important to them they're like, a lot of times our goals are on our own because we're so indoctrinated with all these other messages and what we should be. And, we operate the first 18 years of our lives just pleasing our parents and teachers and coaches. And, then we're thrown in this world of, all right, go figure this out. And we've never been able to really freely think for ourselves. And, then from there, it's, what our boss wants us, the society wants us, what our spouse wants us. And you operate so fast and you get on this fucking thing and you're comparing yourself to like, a lot of people, I don't know. I mean, is that kind of the core? Is that one of the core things of, getting clarity on what it is that you truly want?
Well, you already know what you want. Here's the problem: you set this up. You set up the idea of wanting it, not actually having it, and that's what people don't recognize. Like, you set up a life to be better than the one you had, but you didn't design the life that you wanted. Like, have you ever heard anybody say that their wedding was the greatest day of their life?
I'm sure I have.
It is the stupidest statement any human being can ever make, because what did you just set up? You might as well get your divorce papers ready. And the reason why is when you say your wedding was the greatest day, it can't get any better, correct? So it is one of the worst statements any human being can say, because what you said is, God, my wedding was the greatest day of my life. Well, then your husband or wife has to have an open bar every day. You need a horse-drawn carriage. You always got to wear a dress. All your friends have to be around. It only gets worse. So what we do is we position ourselves through language to lose instead of to win, meaning that we say, you know what? I never want this. I want that. Here's what I'm going to go get. And then you finally get what you wanted. And you didn't realize that you created it and how much power you really had, that you actually did all that. Then you just forgot to take the next step. So this is where we go wrong. And the only way to get over the wall is we've either got to let somebody help us, which is what you do, right? Or you've got to grow and outgrow your current situation. And I think a lot of us don't recognize that the growth comes in our communication, not in our hard work. And a lot of us realize that we communicate like crap. And I don't even mean with other people. It's like we position things in our life. Like, how I know this is people had no idea that last year was a lesson in influence of communication. It was those that won communicated right. Those that lost communicated very poorly. And I'm just going to tell you, communication is the most underdeveloped and underutilized asset that we have to getting what we want, period. Anything in life requires communication. Everything in life. You want sex, communication. You want love, communication. You want happiness, communication. You want money, communication. You want to sleep well, communication. You want 80 to go weight, communication. Kids to love you, communication. Have birth, communication. Everything is a form of communication and is the one skill we do not work on as human beings.
Yeah. Because I'm guessing you also mean when you say communication, it's the communication with our own selves as well as others.
I mean, that's it. So, like, I'll give you an example. Have you, people that have issues with food, they have a communication challenge with food. They are misrepresenting what's going on. They say things like, I love churros. And they go, well, I'll have some broccoli today. It's just the way they're communicating. So their brain, I'm not saying to jump up and down about broccoli, but you have set it up so well in your brain that ice cream is such a turn on. And just so we're clear, Josh, what I do, the psychology stuff that I do, I would call them people that do what I do, like other people in my profession. They are hired by the media and the news, and I know these people, I'm friends with them. They do the bad guy, berserko, negative, the Joker version of what I do. I do the Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, make the world better. They do the bad shit. So how to actually position things to ourselves to make us want to do them, we don't put a lot of effort to think about that.
Yeah. So then, when it kind of circling back, because I want to make sure that,
I'll cover it all. We're opening a lot of open loops.
Yeah. When it comes back to the one thing is part of that is, when you set, I don't know, a destination, because a lot of people will like, oh man, once I get out of debt, or once I hit this, or I hit this. And then as you mentioned, it's not always, what you think or whatever. And maybe that's because they're, so focused on once I arrive, life will be good, instead of, all right, hey, like I have this goal, but let me also figure out how to make my life good right now, but then also like they're setting a destination where then they're now put themselves, once they arrive, now it's maintenance mode. And the universal law is everything is either growing or it's decaying, right? Right. I mean, that's a benchmark, but I mean, I don't know, human beings are designed to want more, right? And it keeps us growing, keeps it expanding. Is that a component, of it and the key to continuing to break through?
Yeah. So the big piece of the puzzle is we got to go back to our original reason, what makes us do things. And everything is driven by our reasons. Like, do you remember when you started lifting? How old were you?
11, 12.
Yeah, I remember that. Remember, like, oh, when you turn 11 or 12, your body can lift weights, and you lift with your brother in the basement. Do you know what I'm saying? Or someone's house. Remember those days? Yep. We all read Arnold Schwarzenegger's dictionary, whatever the hell the encyclopedia was. Do you remember having that back in the day? So what happened was, my original reason for working out, I'm just going to preface this for everybody, was to be strong, not get beat up. I was on a team. I played ice hockey. I wanted to hurt people, and I want to impress girls. So then I'm 35 years old and I can't work out. I'm wondering why I can't. Well, here's why I can't work out. Impressing women and being married doesn't work really well. Beating people up gets you to go to jail, especially at our age. I'm not on a team, no reason to work out. So I realized work out of my brain had a predestined emotion. So then I started training for Spartan races and had no trouble doing it once I switched the word. But think about this from a communication. I had no issue training. Workout meant something I used to do that I pretend I'm going to do that I'm not. Let's now go to business. What was your original reason for going into business?
I got sick and tired. I just had I got sick and tired of having a capacity, man. I realized that to create what I really wanted or what I thought I wanted at that time, right? Or I shouldn't say.
I love it.
What I wanted was to go out there and be in control of my own fate.
Very good. So I'll meet people 5 years in a business and they're making $82,000 a year and wondering why they're not made $800. And I'll say, what was your original reason for going into business? I wanted to be my own boss, prove a point, and I didn't want anyone telling me what to do. And then I'm like, congratulations, you did that 3 or 4 years ago. Now do you actually want to run a business? So what most people do is we have an initial thing that gets us going, the stimulant. You understand this from the nutraceutical stuff, the stimulant, the coffee, the thing that gets us going in the morning, right? The little thing. And then you got to figure out what's going to get you to that next stage. So a lot of us are living off of our original story. So I watch most people, their original reason for going to business is to prove a point. They want to do it themselves. They want to be financially independent. So now they make $142,000 a year. They're financially independent and they want to make $600,000 a year. It isn't that they need a different why. That's not what the problem is. The problem is they're relying off what was a good idea prior. They need to now decide it's time to run a profitable business and to run it like a business, not run it Mickey Mouse just so you can prove a point to impress people. What's amazing is you'll watch how many people are living past an old story.
Yeah. Love it. I mean, like my mind goes to Michael Jordan of, like a lot of fire that he had, whereas, all the coaches that cut him, all the people that told me wouldn't make. When he gave his MVP speech, he just thanked all the people that, that doubted him. And, but at some point, once he proved them wrong and became the best in the game at that league at that time. And like, okay, well then like something else had to become that internal driver, right? So,
Yes. We have to switch out our driver from time to time. So for a lot of people, you're living with a driver. So just imagine if any of you looked in the mirror and you said to yourself, like, okay, so my book for 9 years, so I was having trouble getting my book done. This should help a lot of people that get stuck. For 9 years, I came up with the concept of Average Sucks 9 years ago. Now it'll be 10 years ago. The book came out last year. And what was interesting was for 9 years, I wanted to get the book done. I knew what needed to go in it, but I couldn't get myself to do it. Here's why. A 9-year-old boy was trying to write the book. The kid that wasn't good at school, that wanted to prove a point. I was going to show everyone I could do it. Wasn't going to ask for help. Went through $100,000 in publishers and ghostwriters trying to figure it out. And then one day I looked in the mirror and this is what I said to myself. I said, wait a second. Why can't I do this? I've traveled around the world. I made tens and tens and tens and tens and tens and tens of millions of dollars. I own tons of real estate. I got a great wife, great family, every reason to do well. How come that guy's not writing the book? And then I'm like, wait a second. That guy would ask for help. And I literally turned to my wife. I said, I got 90% of this done. Will you help me? She goes, I was waiting for you to ask. I was not asking for help. And literally 3 days later, the publisher got a copy of my book and 20-something thousand copies later, the book's been sold, bestseller, changing lives all around the world, all because I was actually running my life as an old version of me versus who I am now. Most people listening to this are not running their day as who they are. They're running it as they used to be. And it sounds esoteric and strange, but dude, you've done 45,000 listing appointments. You've showed buyers houses. You've dealt with mortgage companies. You've been turned down. You've been beat up. You made the team. You are so much better than you think you are. You just keep on thinking you're brand new.
Yeah. Love it, man. So, when it comes to average sucks, right? Title of the book. All right. So if we look at, the average person today, at least in America, right? I mean, broke, fat, depressed, and I don't mean to be a jerk, but that's just the reality of the situation. Like
you're not being a jerk. You're telling the truth. They're overweight. They're miserable.
Yeah, I mean, you got over 70% of the population overweight, over 50% morbidly obese. You got 50% in medical debt, 40% in college debt. You only got 2% of Americans that can retire at the age of 65 or older without being reliant on the government or family to take care of them. And average doesn't lead to anything good. So, and I think a lot of people probably get that or understand that. I hope, I guess there's some people that don't. Then from there, man, it's like no matter, you might be above that income bracket or health bracket than average, but at any stage of the game, we can live in our own average, even though that's above, and I had a huge, kind of, I guess, gut check, when David Goggins' book first came out, first came out, and he was talking about the 40%, governor. I'm like, dude, that's me. And even though I, became one of the top in our industry and all these other people, from outsiders, thought I'd create all the success. I'm like, yeah, I created that. But now that I've created, dude, I'm only operating at not even 40%, I was like, I'm in my own, I'm allowing myself.
You're your own average
of where that benchmark is, can you speak to that of, how to have that awareness and how to have those breakthroughs, because I don't know. I mean, I don't know if we can ever really reach our full potential, so there's never a point where we can't be growing, right?
Yeah. So when I wrote the book, Average Sucks, it's in a fool's use. And I recommend everybody get it. Listen, here's the deal. Spend $20 in a book. And if you're not going to turn into 40, don't buy the book. And I tell everyone, every book you get, every podcast, if this podcast doesn't turn into thousands of dollars for you, just this one over the course of the next 10 years, you're doing something wrong. You should not invest your time in anything you're not going to monetize. So when I go to buy a book, I always say, I'm going to turn 20 to 40. Like Goggins' book, I turned that into first Jesse Itzler's book. Jesse's a good friend of mine with Living with a SEAL. That into Goggins' book, I've turned it into so much money, so much happiness. But here's the issue. I had a guy years ago poke me in the belly and he goes, how tall are you? And I go, I'm 6'6". And he goes, why don't you start acting like it? He goes, you live your life like you're 5'11". And I never thought of it that way. And I realized that when I wrote the book, Average Sucks, it's my license plate on my car. I wear the shirt all the time. And guys like you stop me. It's the greatest recruiting tool in the world. I always tell the EXP guys, get the shirt because you can recruit great because it's easy. So what happens is people stop you and they go, I love the shirt. I go, do you know what it means? They go, oh yeah, do be better than everybody else, man. Got to be a badass. Only badass stop you. But then this happens. I said, you really know what it means? He goes, no, you're average. We all have an individual average inside of us that dominates our everyday thinking. And here's the crazy part. So let's just say you've got a set income that you make. If I ask your accountant, they know what you make. Everybody, all the bullshit comes out if I ask your accountant or I ask the IRS. I mean, you could fake it until you make it online with your Lambo. I call the IRS. I know exactly what you made last year or you lied, right? So what happened is, let's say you make $250,000 a year. You could sit on your ass for 9 months of the year. And then in the last 90 days, because you are structured to make 250, you'll do it in the last 90 days, guaranteed. So what happens is most of us have an average that you did not realize that you set years ago. The question is, how do you actually change that? And this is where I attack the personal development industry, because whether it's Tony Robbins or anybody, I love Tony, but Tony will say, take massive action. That'll work for about 90 days until your ass burns out. Massive action on anything is going to, everyone knows this listening, do not lie to yourself. You could do massive action for a few months and then you're fried. Everybody knows that. Am I right about that, Josh? You burn out. You can only do it for a certain amount of time. What we need to do is change what our average is. So what that is I created something called minimum action progress plan. And what it is first figuring out what do you do automatically and growing from there. So I'll give an example. Like a guy says to me, he wants to get in better shape. I got a client that's in the movie business to be in that movie 300 years ago, the Gladiator movie. And the guy said, I'm going to start working out 5 days a week, 5 hours, 5 days, 5 times a day and eat 5 meals a day. I said, do you do that now? And he goes, no. I go, here's a better plan. Go work out this week, go eat healthy and tell me how you did. And the guy told me I worked out 15 times a week. I said, good. That's about, 2.5 times a day. And I ate about 16 healthy meals a week. I said, it's a good start. Do it again next week. And after about 3 weeks of him doing this, I said, let's up your average 20%. So instead of saying, I'm going to do it every day, let's grow 20%. Because let me ask you, if you worked out 10% harder, wouldn't that give you like enormous gains in your life? Just 10% harder. Yeah. Do you need to work out every day of the week, or do you need to push yourself about 10% harder? So most people say things like every day, and they say things like, I'll start tomorrow. Decisions are hard to make. So when I say to people, make one decision, like I'm going to commit to working out for the next 2 days. I'm going to make cold calls for the next 2 days. It hacks the brain. And the brain goes, I never heard that one before. I'll give that a shot. And after day one, if you want to do 2 more days, you can. But if you could actually work out more often than not, 3.5, 4 days a week, you're going to start getting farther. If you make your cold calls and YouTube videos 3 or 4 days a week, you'll start getting there. We don't need to be perfect. We need to increase what our averages are. So that's what most of us are dealing with. We need to increase by about 5 or 6%, and you'll get about 1,000% gain in your life. That's what I've seen over the years of teaching this to people. Tens of thousands of people, they want to do everything versus just doing a little bit more.
So all right, let's just say that.
Let's break it down.
Yeah, let's just say that you're making this increase, and let's just use 10%. I guess whatever that is. But at what point do you know it's time to increase that by another 10%? I mean, is it once it becomes routine, easy to do, it's habitual? Like at what point okay, hey, it's safe for me to do this without overtraining for whatever that thing is that lead to burnout, exhaustion, whatever.
You got to look in the mirror and realize you have an average. So this is probably the best metaphor I could give. January 1st, I did 1 push-up. And that sounds funny, especially to you, 1 push-up. Who cares? The hardest thing about doing 1 push-up is I did 1. I wanted to do 50, but I did 1. On the second day of the year, I did 2. On the third year, I did 3. So if you add that up, by the third day, I did 6. So you're thinking, what the hell's the point? By the end of month 1, I did 300. The end of month 2, I did 1,200. And I realized I'll do over 36,000 push-ups this year. On day 167 it is. Here is why I'm bringing this up. My average went from doing 1 a day to averaging about 76 a day. It changed who it is that I am. So what we've got to figure out how to do is to hack our system. And we've got to realize what is our next average to do. So here's the question. Do you want to make it stick, or do you want to impress yourself and solve your problem currently? And if you want to make it stick, we've got to figure it out. So I always tell everybody, you want to make YouTube videos every day? Go make 1 this month. That's it. Go make 1. And if you feel like making 2, you can make 2. Get started. And so I'm just going to tell you, you've got to decide if you're even going to like it. Because most people, they want to do things. Here's why you're not doing it, Josh, because you actually don't want to. Because everything you'd want to do, you'd be doing already. Like, let's get really clear. You don't want to make the videos. You don't want to have those conversations with your kid and your wife. You don't want to work out. You don't want to do it. You know you don't. Stop pretending you do. But here's the deal. Why don't you do it? See if you like it. And if you do it again, and then you could do it again. But instead of building this big ass plan of what you're going to do, get started, see if you can get any form of momentum. And if you do, we'll go from there. So I know it sounds negative and harsh, but here's the thing. These people don't want to do what they say. They want to talk about it. They don't actually want to do it. And if you want to do it, I want you to do it once. And if you like it, we'll talk about doing it again.
Yep. Yeah, and I mean, dude, it's brilliant, right? Because as you mentioned, it was massive action, hustle.
Bullshit. That's what that stuff is.
And it's like, all right, you're thinking, okay, I got to go from, I've been working 8 hours a day, 40 hours a week for my whole life, and now I'm going to go work 100. Right? Like, and it's when you're having these conversations, or you're saying what you're saying, like back in my personal training days, if somebody had never worked out before, I was like, look, like, we're going to take this slow. We're going to ease into it. Otherwise you're going to get hurt. You're going to get injured. Your body's going to hurt too much where you're at the point where you're not going to want to come back in. And most importantly, we've got to develop these habits. And, we would adjust, okay, just their water intake at first. And then, once we got that down, then it was like, okay, hey, let's just work on meal number 1. The rest of the meals today is good, right? And then after 30 days, and then they got that down, so it's developing those habits in the right way and long-term habits. And I think it's all brilliant. I love it.
And that it changes people. So like when I have people talk to their food, which is a crazy concept, it takes a couple. This is funny because people say, I'm going to eat today, but they don't even realize what they're doing. Like you ever drank a shake?
Yeah.
I always tell everyone, never drink a shake ever again the rest of your life. And then they stop. They go, what the hell are you talking about? I said, you need to chew a shake. You don't want to drink a shake. Because if you chew it, Your brain then sends the appropriate enzymes to your stomach, and any doctor in the world will back up what I'm saying. When you chew it, your jaw then creates the right saliva, the right amount of enzymes to your stomach, knows what it is and breaks it down correctly. So whenever we eat, we got to talk to our food. So food is a relationship, right? Like I always tell everyone, it's like dating. It's going to be inside of you for the next 5-6 years. You probably should know its name and where it's from, like get a relationship with it, right? And so I always say food, it's either nutrition, entertainment, or addiction. So you having Subway for lunch, you just got to call it out. I'm having entertainment. Stop calling it food. It isn't nutrition. Nutrition is steamed broccoli, some chicken or something you made on the grill with no sauce. You put some barbecue sauce on it, it's not nutrition anymore, it's entertainment. That's the part most people don't realize is that, and then there's addiction, something we're overdoing. So if we actually communicated what we're doing, you know what I'm gonna do tonight? I don't drink anymore, but I'm gonna go get blitzed. I'm gonna get so messed up and I'm feel horrible tomorrow. If you actually told yourself what you were going to do, your brain would put it in the right box in your brain and would go, got it, you were a moron last night. The hangover was designed because you were an idiot, not to beat because you were a moron. That's why you get a hangover. So this is the part people don't get is it's a relationship and you've got to go, you know what? I'm going to do cold calling. Odds are I'm not going to be good at this. I will get better, but odds are I will not be good at this for a couple of weeks. It's not negative. It's called the truth. The problem is you're like, you know what? I'm going to be good at this. By golly, I'm going to do affirmations and be good at it. Affirmations are bullshit. It doesn't really get you anywhere. So I always tell everyone if they talk to their food and say, what are your intentions with me? I'm here to, make you feel good now. You feel like crap in an hour. Just know it. And then you know what you're getting yourself into. It has everything to do with that in life.
Love it, man. Love it, dude. So, with for all this to begin and for people to begin all this work, man, you got to be, I guess, in a space mentally where you can start applying this. And right now, over the last 18 months or so, man, it's broken a lot of people's spirits, right? It's, you got COVID, you're taking away, community from people. The people can't go to church. They're not going to the gym. They're not going out to eat. They're not going, to the places where they congregate. They're not, and then when you leave your house, you got to wear this uncomfortable mask. It's uncomfortable. And like people aren't smiling and, right. People aren't even making eye contact because then, it's just a weird thing and you got to social distance. And then, so you got all that, and then you got this crazy election, and then these riots, and dude, it's just, right. And I've seen, like, I was having a conversation with a friend of mine the other day. Now, this is something that typically is, man, the badass, never seen this person mentally down before this time. And, comment that they made to me was, it is taking me 10 minutes to write and send an email that should take 30 seconds. They're just so mentally in a tough state where, it's gonna be tough for some people to just get out of bed and just function with, and I've more than any other time in my lifetime, I'm witnessing it now with a lot of people struggling mentally, right? So somebody is in just a bad mental space right now, where they can't even think about doing this type of work that we've been discussing up to this point, because they're like, dude, I don't want to get out of bed, man. Like I'm just like, they've kind of mentally given up. What would your advice be there to get them through that mental space where then they, want to and maybe have that desire to start doing the right work?
Okay, so let's just get real frank with this whole thing. I've been around marketing, influence, and sales for my entire life, and I watch and understand people. So if you ever want to take somebody's will, you attack the three most important things to them: their health, their relationships, and their finances. And last year was a strategic, let's just use the media for an example. It was a strategic overload of your worry about your health. Now you're homeschooling your kids. It screwed up your family and your relationships. Then you're worried about people and dying and all this and upsetting people. And then financially, we were upset. So our attention went to the problem. So why our brain is obsessed with the problem, why we're obsessed with it, is we as human beings, we get obsessed with the idea of staring at negative stuff. It's not because we're negative people. It's because our brain doesn't want it to happen again. So when you're driving by a car accident, the reason you look at it is because your brain is like, memorize that whole thing so that doesn't happen to us. Johnny's going through a divorce. You listen to the whole story about it because I don't want to go through a divorce. Let me hear all of that, memorize it all so I don't experience it. So if you're dealing with a challenging thing right now, I always tell everyone, you're not going to fight through a fight that you can't win. You're not going to go in a ring with Mike Tyson. You're going to get your ass kicked. I mean, it's just, there's no question. I mean, you didn't see Logan Paul saying, I want to fight Mike Tyson. He would not win. It would not be a good idea. Does that make Mayweather? That was cute. Does that make sense? But Mike Tyson wouldn't win. And that's what a lot of us are up against right now. It's like you're fighting Mike Tyson. So the one thing I would just tell everybody is, number one, you need to stop fighting. And you need to realize very quickly that you need to start clearing your mind. And what I mean by clearing your mind right now is there's a few things that are the problem. And I want to get really clear that you don't realize what you're doing. And this should be a little cleanup for all of us have. So remember when you first got into business, they told you to avoid the news. Remember that years ago when you first got in? We all avoided the news. And I avoided TV. At one point, I didn't watch TV for about 3 years. Okay. Then when Biography Channel started having the History Network and the History Channel and stuff came out, I started getting a little involved, want the men who built America. Then this freaking thing, this piece of shit that we all need to get rid of, our phones eventually. I can't wait till we have a mass burning of these things and to get rid of these one day. I know they make us money. Came out, we started clicking Netflix, and I was still going to do it safe. I was going to watch a little bit of those docuseries, and I was going to learn about the happy brain and all that stuff. And then one day I started watching a show. Our brains are designed to see shows like we watched when we were kids. Family Ties one week, and then we watched it a week later. We were not designed to binge watch. So what happens is you start off at night, and the 8 hours before, the hour before you go to bed and the 8 hours while you're sleeping are the determinant of your next day. So let's get really clear, everybody. What you do the hour before bed, what you think about the hour before bed lives in your unconscious for 8 hours and primes your next day, period. I'm going to leave it there. I tested this because years ago I'd watch The Sons of Anarchy, and then I'd watch show after show, and I woke up at the middle of the night with imprints in my head. Okay. I would think and worry, oh my God, what's going to happen to Jax and this and that. And I'd worry about it in my day. Not really, but I'd be concerned about it. And then I realized when you turn these things off, put them on airplane mode before you go to bed, and literally do this, pick up a freaking book, read it with a book light, not on your Kindle, and you read it, you start clearing out your mind. You start getting words in your head instead of ideas and other stuff, because it's so easy to go from Netflix to watching the media, watching the news. So I'm just going to tell all of you, step number one, we've got to turn that thing off, and you've got to take a break from watching any of these series and shows. I would just delete Netflix, delete Prime. I'm being really serious right now. I would get rid of all that as much as you can. That would be a big step for all of you. Number two is you're going to have to start reading and just start moving your body. The reason we don't feel good is you're not moving your body. I don't know anybody stressed out of their mind that's got a good workout routine going right now. I don't know anybody like that, because it's very hard to be depressed and down in the middle of a push-up. You ever come up with a good idea while you're running? Josh, you ever had a great idea? You're out running. The reason is your brain produces a different set of chemicals while you're moving than it does while you're sitting still. So when you go out for a run, your brain is like, whoa, new environment, new thing. You get great ideas because you're doing something different. Here's what most of us have to recognize right now is that you need to step out of what you're doing, and you need to realize that there's a game being played that you cannot win, that you need to disconnect from. So that's a piece of the answer. I know I went off on a tangent about that. I am just telling you that I do hypnosis, and I do hypnotic language patterns. I'm the best in the world at it. And if I ever wanted to get across to somebody, I would control what they did before they went to bed.
Yeah. Love it, man. Love it, dude. So then, when you speak to a game that you can't win, it's whether you want to look at this in business or as an investor or whatever, it's all right, well, here's the cards that are being dealt, dealing realities, and then you figure out how to play that hand. Right? So then if people hear, oh, you're fighting Mike Tyson, you can't win this battle, that might then make them think, okay, giving up on the trying to overcome being average and so forth. But
you don't have to fight Mike Tyson. We don't have to fight the world. We don't have to fight the political agenda, unless that's the thing you do for a living. What we need to do is get to the next step. Yeah. Yep.
So, and everything that you're what you said before is leading to, I guess, lowering the pressure, quieting the noise. Right. Of that. So then you can do you and focus on you.
Well, let's take a real world example. We can talk about this in theory. Let's take a person, let's take what's going on, like just something you've heard from somebody or something you said, or even yourself. And I'd love to help this as a real world example rather than just theory.
All right. So, so during, and not that it's probably not still going on today, but I had several friends during when the riots started, the whole George Floyd thing, happened. And it was like, all right, if you were an influencer out there, there was a lot of pressure behind the scenes that maybe the rest of the, people didn't see, to go out there and get behind BLM and support it, right. And I had several close friends that, were in that situation, and they're like, look, man, I support all people, all races, but I'm not in alignment with the BLM, the political organization, what that organization stands for. It has nothing to do with race. It has to do with, their policies that they want. And I have, some friends that do that got bashed and death threats and, right. And impacted their business, and, that threw them off.
So are they still off now?
Yeah. I guess, one in particular, right. And it's a combination of that, and then COVID and other, like everything just all at once,
So whenever we have anything that seems major, and this is really crazy, this is about positioning inside of our head. And I could ask you, when you picture the riots, I want you this is insane what I'm going to tell you, and it's going to sound like I psychobabble to you first, but I want you to understand, when you picture COVID and when you picture the riots, or you picture the political thing, or picture these big problems, where do you picture them? Like up, down, left, or right?
I don't know.
Now just think about it for a second. So do you picture this big problem up here or a big problem on the floor?
I guess, I don't.
The I guess is an accurate yes. So anything that we feel like we can't control, we put up here. This is why Joel Osteen has the big old projectors up top, because that's where you put God, you put powerful things, you put them up high. So in our brain, things that are more powerful than us, we put up high. Most of us have a projection inside of our head of things we can't control that are bigger than us. So whenever we're going to make a cold call, this is insane stuff. I help people get over major trauma in life, and they picture the trauma out of their own eyes. So whenever I talk to your buddy, he's like, oh my God, I'm seeing this out of my own eyes. I'm seeing it like it's happening right now, and it's real. It's like when I work with Navy SEALs, I can only tell you to the level that I work with them to a point. What I realized is, when they're getting rid of a target, or they're doing an operation or a mission, that involves doing something most human beings are not comfortable doing. Once they activate the trigger and they do what shouldn't be done, they're not saying, oh, now's my time to kill off a guy named Joe Smith. He is a father of 5. He has a puppy and he lives in a house. No, he's a target. He's a mark. Do you understand? Now, what's interesting about this is, when we work with them afterwards, what we've learned is the faster we can get that out of first person into seeing it happen to someone else. Like, got it. So there you were, and you see yourself watching yourself take the shot, instantly the intensity goes down. When the picture changes, because everything in life is picture, sounds, and feelings. So your friend that's dealing with BLM, dealing with riots, dealing with political unrest and everything else, and all this negative talk, is either dealing with a picture in their head, a sound in their head, or a feeling inside of their head that's already occurred. It's not happening right now. It's already in their head. So how they hold that is really how it works. So what most people do, it's big, it's bold. They'll be raped once and they'll rape themselves 10,000 times a day for the rest of their lives. What we need to recognize is we've got to take power of that movie player inside of our head. And this is the crazy part. The media, Netflix and Prime, they control the movie player inside of your head, which controls your reality over and over again. They are taking control of the sounds, the picture, and the quality inside of your brain. And the more HD it is, this is why when I rent a movie, I will always rent SD, not HD, because I want it less real. And the reason why is I don't want that shit inside of my head. I'll take the entertainment. I don't want the reality. So what your friend is dealing with is they have a real picture inside of their head that already happened. The problem is they keep on making it happen. Is this resonating with what I'm saying? Yep. It's not happening currently, is it?
No, yeah, they're playing the tapes.
So what you need to say is, back in May of last year, this is what I was dealing with. Currently, I'm remembering it, but I'm not dealing with it currently. That would help the person move on. The problem is most people don't know step 13 in AA, which was never invented, was there was a time in my life that I lived differently and used to drink. The problem is AA won't accept that because they need people to come back to AA. So I've been around the program for a long time. And I know that step 13 is no different than there was a time in my life in the past. Do you know how powerful it is just to say the words in the past? In the past, I allowed things like this to bother me. Currently, I'm working on it. The second you reposition, your brain shifts where that thing lives inside of your head.
Yep. Yep. Love it, dude. So I know we're going along on time, but I got, one last question / topic, if you will. All right. So, when you drew that box, man, that people live in, the want, the don't want, the identity, and then you have the people component.
Yep.
When you're trying to level up, right. Not live amongst average.
Yep.
One of the hardest things as you're going down that journey, and I don't know any entrepreneur that hasn't struggled with this at some aspect in during their journey of the people in your lives, because it's okay if whatever, I don't know what the number is, but let's just say it's, I don't know, 90 or 98% or whatever it is, choose to remain in average. Well, you're this like, like you're this minority that's going out there and creating and doing something that others don't understand. Yeah. Right. And those that can be even closest to you. And it can create, tension, and it can, prohibit people from moving, whatever. What do you recommend to manage that? How do you manage that people component?
Yeah, so I manage the people component by working on the ID component, and it's the ID component which changes the people component. So how do you identify? And it's funny, the funny word identify, because I was a 2020. What do you identify? So I identify as a person that's been playing a game, doing this for a period of my life. The majority of us need to realize that the people and the relationships in your life change when you change your identity. And most of us are not really willing to change our identity. You want to change other people, but we need to change. How do we identify? And most of us are using what I'd call a fake ID in life. And the reason they're using a fake ID is like you're pretending you're something you're not, and you're working towards something you want to do, and you're telling them you're going to do it and you don't. And the majority of us need to clean up our own identity. And like give me an example. Well, I just need to keep them happy. No. You identify as a guy that wants to keep people happy. And I'm not saying you need to go out there and be a jerk or change, but when your identity changes, the people in your life change. And most of us have to recognize that we're running a script. So the people you have in your life, you do not need to get rid of them. You don't need to remove them. They can be there if you want them to be there, but you've got to realize they're part of your current identity of what you do, and they're not going to go anywhere until you're willing to change. So I guess the question is, what is the price you're willing to pay to get where you want to go? Because here's the problem. Every one of us have been a liar. So let's just say you go to make from $100,000 a year to $350,000 a year. You need it to be like, what I was doing was not enough. And then your friends are like, well, I don't get it. You've changed. Well, you did change. You now make $350 a year because you've been lying for years. You've been saying happy hour is more fun than working hard. And I'm not saying you can't do both. You have to realize that we need to own the lies that we've made. So here's the deal. When you change your identity, you are then going to have some conversations with people about the way that you used to live that you might have been playing small. So what happens is once that happens, it gives the opportunity to grow the relationships in your life. So if you love these people, the greatest thing you can do for them is to become all you can be and be a leader in their world. So do you like Metallica at all?
Yeah.
I grew up with Metallica. I grew up with Guns N' Roses and different things like that. And what's interesting is there's a song called Hero of the Day. And I didn't know what it meant. I liked it. And it's all about kids looking out the window for leaders on TV because they can't find one in their own home. If we want the world to change and the world to be better, we need to give people more examples of what's possible. So if we want to mend the relationships and encourage the people in our lives and to do the things we need to do, we need to give them additional options, which means we need to step up in our own lives and do the things we need to do. So there's no script on how to talk to your brother and your friends of why you're now not doing this or that. We need to do these things and just say, you know what, I choose to live differently now, and I'm doing new decisions. When you change your identity, your box grows, your average grows, and you start getting closer to what it is that you want. So stop focusing on the people, change your identity, and then you'll have to be forced to have the conversations that are necessary to have. I know this is not fun, what I'm saying, but guess what? It really is fun, because there's nothing more fun than being full version you and stopping the game of pretending that you can't have what you want.
Yep. Love it, man. So, dude, you work with a lot of companies, executives, and so forth. We talked about the book, and we'll of course have links in below for everybody to go snag a copy of the book. But then, for those that are wanting to maybe do some higher level work with you and your organization, man, like what does that look like?
Yeah, I've got a lot of things. I do everything from, I mean, everyone listening should do what we call the Average Sucks Challenge. And the reason why is we've been doing this we think we invented challenges. We've been doing this before MySpace even existed. So it's a thing called averagesucks.com/challenge. And it's 5 days working directly with me, challenging what's possible in your life. And the biggest thing I'm going to ask for is about 10 hours of your life. And my desire is I'm going to show you how to get more done in 5 days than you have in 5 months. If you want to learn the voodoo stuff, you got to track me down and you've got to come find me. And I'm going to leave it up to you to figure out. You can email me, mike@michaelbernoff.com, and I could talk to you more in depth about it. I'm one of the best in the world at human language patterns. I invented something called human interaction technology, and it is how to get people to lower resistance, increase receptivity in any area of life. And I work with the 3-letter agency people. I work with some of the highest level attorneys in the world. I work with billion-dollar companies, and I work with real estate people, mortgage people, and anybody that wants to make a difference in their life. So if you're serious about that, come find me, but do the challenge, because if you can't spend 10 hours, I don't want to talk to you about what 50 hours looks like.
Yeah, 100%, man. And I mean, our introduction came from, somebody that you work with, somebody that you mentor, and, somebody that I have had on the podcast multiple times.
He's great.
Somebody that I is extremely well respected in the real estate community, one of the top of the industry. And, I mean, he just speaks volumes. I mean, about the work that you do and the impact it's made on his life. And, those watching and listening, we'll have links below to all of that. And so whatever medium that you're on, whether you watch, wherever you listen, if you just scroll below, you will see that there. And Michael, dude, I know how busy you are, and the fact that you took time out of your busy to be here, man, this has been amazing. It's been a huge honor, my friend.
You too. I appreciate it. And you are definitely a guy that lives a life, screams average sucks, man. I mean, I just looking at you, learning from you. It's great. So appreciate you. Thanks for letting me share, and great things are happening, man. Thank you.
100%, my friend. And those watching and listening, as always, we truly appreciate your support. Truly appreciate you being here. Keep up the amazing work. Keep kicking ass, and we'll see you next time. Peace. I hope you enjoyed this GSD Mode podcast episode. Now make sure you get shit done and smash that subscribe button now.